On February 12th, 2014, Paris Saint-Germain Football Club put in an absolutely dominant performance in the first leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League. They managed to beat FC Barcelona, considered one of the best teams in the world, by 4-0. Everyone agreed that the French team would have no problem advancing into the next round, since FC Barcelona would have to score at least 4 goals, and knowing how PSG defended in the first match, that just seemed impossible. However, what happened in the second leg of that matchup will probably go down as one of the most spectacular games of football that has ever been played. Barcelona was leading 2-0 at halftime and managed to extend their lead early in the second half. But then PSG managed to score a goal. This meant that in order to advance, Barcelona had to score an additional 3 times. The score stayed the same until the 88th minute of the match, when a crazy 9-minute period, Barcelona managed to score 3 more times and advance to the next round. Everyone was amazed by how they pulled this off and praised star player Neymar for being the architect of this miraculous win. This is an amazing story, and many parts of both matches are worth watching over and over. But for me, what makes this the most interesting sporting event that I have ever witnessed is what happened in between the 2 matches. A video appeared on YouTube in which PSG players discussed the win and the next match. And in that video, some of the players engaged in what I call the most common mental mistake athletes make. Listening to your inner critic, which leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy. In this video, the players discussed whether they would be happy if they lost 5-1, but still advanced to the next round. And this seems very weird to me because you've just beaten a team 4-0, so there's not really anything to indicate that the next time you would suffer a big loss like 5-1. But more strikingly, the body posture of the athletes showed that they actually considered this as an option. The problem with this kind of behavior is that the body listens to the mind. If you tell yourself, I don't want to miss this next serve, the chances are actually higher that you're going to miss the next serve. This phenomenon is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'm sure that everyone has felt the effects of this at some point in their lives. What happens in this situation is that your brain starts to focus on the thing that you're trying to avoid. So instead of focusing on the receivers on the other side of the court, which you normally do, you now suddenly start to focus on your own arm or on the net, and this leads you to miss your serve. In the case of the football players, by talking and thinking about losing by such a big margin, they planted the seed in their head to think about this kind of loss. And maybe when they went into the match, they were still confident that they were going to be able to advance, but once Barcelona scored once or maybe twice, I'm sure that some of them were thinking, oh no, here we go, I knew this was going to happen. In essence, they became their own worst enemy. Now, everyone has an inner critic, and trying to silence this voice is an almost impossible task. You see, most of these thoughts stem from different emotions, such as doubt, fear, or even anger. Try to think back to the last time you listened to your inner critic. Was this in a situation in which you were afraid that your actions would have big consequences? Or a situation in which you doubted yourself and you weren't sure that you were going to be able to manage this task? Most likely the answer is yes. The reason for this is that emotional responses happen faster than cognitive responses. So in other words, before your body has been able to rationalize what is happening, you have already felt an emotion and are now unable to ignore that emotion. So when working on silencing your inner critic, it is impossible to work on simply avoiding ever having these thoughts. Rather, the most common technique I teach people in order to deal with their inner critic is called the stop sign technique. The first step of this technique is to try and identify when you are dealing with your inner critic. This might mean that you write down a list of situations and thoughts that are negatively influencing you, or maybe you're just starting to become aware of when you're dealing with your critic. The second step is to imagine a big red stop sign in your head. Try to add all kinds of things such as flashing lights and loud sirens to your stop sign to make it even more effective. What you're trying to achieve by doing this is essentially telling your brain, no, I am not listening to you right now because I know this is not going to help me. The third step is to replace your negative thought with a personal positive thought. In my case, this thought is just try, which means that the only and best thing I can ever do is just try my hardest. What you're trying to achieve with this thought is not only replace the negative thought you had, but also try and change the emotion that came with the thought. This statement should be personal and have a strong meaning to you. Overall, the stop sign technique is a good way of dealing with your inner critic. But remember that it will require a lot of practice before it becomes effective. And it might not work straight away. Your inner critic can be your worst enemy if you let it affect your performance. And unfortunately, humans are hardwired to have these thoughts. So your battle with your critic will require a lot of willpower and practice. If you want some help figuring out the most effective way to deal with your own critic, you can contact me and together we can figure out how to go about this best. If you enjoyed learning a way to deal with your inner critic, please like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about mental training, and leave a comment down below about your experiences with your own inner critic.